up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone, we are here with Curses. Thank you guys for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. The newest album is Chapter 2, Bloom. One thing I'm always curious about is every time a band, numbers their albums, I'm always curious, do you think people would have a better understanding of this album if they were to go back and listen to Chapter 1 to introspect before tackling with this one, or can they just approach it at any point?
I think it could probably go either way, honestly. Like, Chapter 1 was, at this point now, it was a different like time period in our life, but Chapter 2 is kind of more of like a mature sound. I feel like we kind of grew into it, and it has a lot more balance in terms of like it's a heavy sound with also like the clean vocals and stuff and the melodies. I think if you wanted to go back to listen to Chapter 1, I mean, obviously it still sounds like us, but I would prefer that people listen to Chapter 2. You can start on Chapter 2 if you want, or you can go back.
Yeah.
Now, the latest singles on this album, The Door in the Wall and Amethyst, could these serve as like a clear representation of what the whole album will sound like, or is this just the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg, if you will?
Oh, I definitely think, well, originally The Door in the Wall, that was our first song, and we thought that would be a good bridge to kind of gap from the Chapter 1 to Chapter 2. Like, people that know us from the first album, that was a good song that kind of like blends into Chapter 2. But songs like the Amethyst and Wu Wei, those ones are, the whole album in my opinion is very experimental, and I mean that in the best way possible. So chances are if you like the Amethyst or Wu Wei or The Door in the Wall, you're more than likely probably going to like the whole album. Like those songs set the tone for pretty much what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've always thought that the music is like fairly experimental. So like I'd imagine trying new things is almost kind of like the most important part of Curses, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there ever like a preconceived idea, or does it kind of just like happen, if you will? Like I call them happy accidents.
Well, I mean, I guess it really just depends, because we kind of like the way that we write the songs. We have like our own sort of structuring and how we do it. Like Davey and Michael and Shane will lay down like a drum track, and then Davey and Michael will kind of write stuff to it, or vice versa. And then me and Eli will come in, and then we'll add our lyrics on top. And then if there are things that could be fixed lyrically, the rest of the guys will pick at it until we can kind of like tweak it a bit, and then that's pretty much how it works. It's a pretty smooth process.
Mm-hmm. And normally when a band is like so experimental, it almost seems like it's not that smooth, because one minute you're bringing an element from here, or an element from here, an element from here. So like I give you guys credit if it's a smooth process and your music is as experimental as it is.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps that we all live together now. Like, we've been living in the same house for almost 3 years, and yeah, I mean, we've all known each other for so long. It's almost been a decade that we've been a band, and we've been doing this for about like 9 years, and it's just, we all seem to have the similar mindset, so it still works. Every single one of us on our, like, individually, we bring something new to the table, but when you put it together, it has a very nice kind of controlled sound to it, even though it is fairly experimental.
Mm-hmm. Is there ever a time where maybe lyrics or a certain subject matter could help influence the structure of the song or even the overall sound of it?
Yes, I think absolutely. That some of the songs were written like that. Like, we had a certain mood or mindset that we wanted to portray in the song, and I mean, the whole album was written about shit that we were all going through at the time, and the album's honestly overall fairly sad, but it's like, we wanted to express how we were feeling at the time, and we feel like the songs can help connect to other people.
Have you ever had like the best lyrics ever, but then they're always like one syllable over or under the actual arrangement?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have that with anything, it's all pretty much just try. You just kind of have to do what feels right and just roll with it.
I know what you mean, exactly what you mean. And like you mentioned that like this album is a lot about how you were feeling at that particular time, but do you find it maybe like the longer you're working on something, the harder it is to kind of maintain that emotion that you initially started with?
Maybe in a way. I kind of feel like if it's a specific song, like Amethyst, especially in my opinion, is like the song that it pretty much what's the word? It brings together the whole vibe for the entire album. That is like the song in my opinion that represents what the album is about. And when we wrote the song, that was like in 2017, and now it's 2020, and it just now came out. But I mean, even though the time passes, it still kind of feels, relevant.
Yeah. I mean, is what we're hearing like the first initial take of it, or did the song change a lot over a long span of time?
Definitely, it's like the initial first take. That's kind of like we wanted to have sort of this raw sound when we were writing it, especially that song. It's just this very dramatic sort of. It feels like it's lost, but you're also trying to find yourself in this like sadness that kind of comes over you. It's like a wave.
Mm-hmm. And like, do you try to leave the music open to interpretation, or is maybe like maybe the goal for Curses to kind of maybe engage the listener into maybe seeing things from your point of view?
Well, some of the songs I'd say definitely have a very specific focus, but there are definitely it's like half and half. Half of the songs on the album are like kind of broad and left up for interpretation, but there are a few that are definitely like very specific. Like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and we know that we're not the only ones that are like this. Like, the songs are made to help connect with other people that might be feeling the same way that we're feeling.
Mm-hmm. Do you almost feel, being that there are two vocalists, do you both like have to be like on the same par emotionally, or like kind of see things from a similar perspective when tracking the material in order to keep it somewhat consistent?
I try to, at least with the writing process, if we already had the lyrics laid out, we would try to formulate the song based on that feel, like you were saying. But that could also work vice versa. There's a couple songs, several on the album, where we actually wrote the whole song first, and the music that we heard inspired the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of went both ways on this album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, when it being that it comes from, if people were to really get a chance to know you guys, like, and really understand the songwriting process, is it almost, can people like listen to this and tell what came first in a way? Like,
oh,
yeah.
I think so. I mean, the way that we listed the tracks on the album, it sort of like tells kind of a story in a way. Like, each song is sort of like a what would you call it? Like a footprint for like what we were going through at the time. I mean, after all, it is a chapter. It's a chapter of our lives, every single one of us. But also, the chapter itself is kind of like, it's not just for us. It's like a chapter that other people will be going through as well. So if you start off like the album, the first song, it talks about where we're from, and then it just kind of goes from there.
Mm-hmm. So you recommend you wouldn't consider this album what I like to call shuffle friendly, right? Like, you want listeners to start off with Almost Heaven and end with Welcome Back?
That would probably be most preferred, yeah. But I mean, if you prefer to shuffle, you're not going to be disappointed either way. But if you're in it for like the story from beginning to end on the whole album, starting from the beginning is definitely the best place to be.
So your albums are kind of like Lord of the Rings in a way.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it didn't really, we didn't plan that out from the beginning. We just were kind of like, Chapter 1 was like our first big album, and we were like, yeah, like Chapter 1 sounded really good, and the more that we talked about having chapters, we were kind of like, we could just kind of keep it going, and we don't have like a planned number for how many chapters we're going to do, but I mean, people seem to kind of like it, and also it kind of helps organize our albums from like beginning to however far we're going to go.
Mm-hmm. So your new nickname is Metalcore of the Rings. What do you say?
I like
That's pretty spot on, honestly. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Do you know the band The Wise Men's Fear?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
They kind of have like a similar thing going for them in a way with their style. So I think you guys touring together would be awesome. Similar styles, similar sort of like motivations and goals. I think you guys would make an awesome tour package.
Oh,
They're recommended as a related artist on our Spotify.
oh really?
That's where I've seen that name. Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll have to hit him up one of these days.
Yep. And they're also influenced by Legend of Zelda, which is awesome. So
Oh, I mean, we're all nerds here at the band house. Like, we love pretty much any of that stuff.
oh, you guys are Zelda fans?
Gaming fans in general, I mean, obviously I grew up on Zelda. I'm like the oldest one in the band, so, you know. I had a Nintendo, and yeah, Zelda, like, God, there's too many. If we're talking Nintendo, that's a whole other conversation, but I'm
Yeah.
getting sidetracked.
Well-
But yeah, like, we love stuff like that. Fantasy and all kinds of that.
Well, do you almost like need to? Do you guys like need to look for inspiration, or do ideas like on what you want to write an album about or sounds just come out of the blue sometimes?
Well, honestly, I think that, weirdly enough, I want to say that we planned them out, but it kind of seems like they just come out of nowhere. Like I said, like Chapter 2 is just all about what we went through, what we've been going through, and what some of us still go through today. And so that's kind of where the main inspiration comes from.
Well, do you guys like need to feel a certain way or be in a certain place at a certain time in order for the ideas to come through? Or like, do you find it easier to maybe come up with ideas when you're the company of all of each other, or if you are, or like, do you sometimes need to be alone in isolation in order to sort of let the creative ideas come through?
Well, I mean, that kind of depends, because it's kind of like we always come together whenever we're piecing it all together, writing songs and everything. But you know, sometimes it'll just be like Davey will be in the studio room by himself, just writing, you know, doing whatever he is, writing these riffs, and like if one sticks, he sticks with it, and then whatever Davey might come up with might inspire Shane to make something that flows with it really well. And then when I hear it, I'm like, oh, okay, I feel like I get this vibe from it. This is what I think of when I hear this. And usually if it like comes down to lyrics, Eli will write on his own and I'll write on my own, and then we kind of will show each other what we both come up with over time, and you kind of blend them together, and it works really well that way, I think.
Yeah. How do you know when a song is done?
That's a hard question to answer. I guess I don't know. Well, we usually listen through it as a whole, like as a group. We listen through it, and you know, we might throw out some suggestions, like maybe we could do this or try that. And you know, if it sounds solid all the way through, if we can't see any holes in it, then we're like, ship it.
Fair enough. That was a better answer than, you know, when I get the final mix back, as some people would say. So.
Yeah. Well, that's too easy of an answer.
Yeah. Now, I also want to congratulate you guys because I consider you guys to be all of you guys originated in West Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, congratulations, because you are officially the third metal band, I think, to come out of that next to Byzantine and Zayo, or as far as I know. Is there kind of like a scene in which you guys are affiliated with in West Virginia?
Well, I mean, the local scene here, like, we have a lot of really hardcore fans that love us, and obviously we love them because it's a small community here, but, like, there's not really a local scene.
There's not one set scene. It kind of, in different areas of West Virginia, it'll come and go in waves.
Yeah.
Say.
And, like, you know, you'll have bands that kind of come and they're in the limelight for a minute and then they just kind of fall apart. Like, it's kind of hard to really have a brand over here in the mountains, I guess, because there's just not really anywhere to play shows too much, and we have to go outside of our own state just to really play somewhere where there's a good draw. So it's difficult, but at the same time, it's like super rewarding because when we make a little bit of effort to go outside of just where we're from, people will react to that and give us that kind of positive energy to make it feel like all this has been worth it so far.
That's good enough. I mean, a lot of people think like if you come from an area with a small scene that it is, and to a degree they're right, it is somewhat of a disadvantage. But at the same time, like being maybe one of the only bands there, people will like remember you guys. You know?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things we got going for us, because, like I said, we've been doing this for a long time, many years, and so, it's cool. Sometimes people will recognize us, and I'm like, oh, hey, like, that's awesome, man. You like my band. Like, that's really cool. We're just trying to make our art, and we enjoy it, and we're proud of it, and we want it to be heard.
That's the only goal that any artist should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone, like my other friends will ask me, they'll be like, so, are you going to make any money? And I was like, if that's money, then I would have quit being in a band a long time ago.
It's like what you should have said is, newsflash, in case you didn't hear, I'm in a band.
Exactly. It's like, you know what you're asking me, right? Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think the metal community and the hardcore community and the punk community are always like, I've always thought that they're very sincere, because everybody is in it for one reason, and that's just because of their love for the music. They don't have nobody has ever picked up a Metallica record and then picked up a guitar with any superficial goal. I felt maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very humbling experience. Like, the older that I get, the more that I'm like realizing how many people that like I'm connecting with just through what we write about and like how we feel. And it's crazy to grow up and like, I was clearly not a very popular person in high school, and like going out into the real world and then finding my place in this music scene, and like people come up to me and say that I inspire them, and I'm like, I inspire you? Like, that's mind-blowing to me. It's a great feeling to have someone say that to you.
Yeah, definitely. And does that change your perspective on how you look at yourself as an artist in a way?
Maybe sometimes, but like I don't let it give me a big head about it. You always got to be humble about stuff like that, because you don't want to ruin a good thing. Like, I appreciate the compliments, and I'll always welcome them, but I'm not gonna like go up to anyone and be like, yeah, so I'm in a band, and I'm surprised you haven't heard of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed this, and the new album is great. I can't wait for the rest of the world to hear it. Just obviously, thanks to a certain virus that I'm not naming on my outlet. Is there just anything else with Curses that you would like to promote? Obviously, when all this is over, we could be expecting to see you guys on the road quite a bit, right? Maybe come to Brooklyn one day?
Oh, absolutely. We were supposed to be planning a tour and everything before, everything started to go underway, and that really set us back, not only with tour dates, but with the album release and everything. But now finally, things are starting to get on track. We're putting stuff out, and fans are happy, so we're very happy, and we're just going to roll with it and see what happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much, everybody. We are here with Curses. Be sure to pick up Chapter 2 Bloom when it comes out next week. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.